Peter, what are the best ways to invest for my children? I get this question quite a lot, and although I don't yet have any children of my own, I thought that this would be a very fun and interesting video to make. Not only is it important to know what types of investments you need to consider for different timelines, but what is often overlooked is how to make these investments as tax efficient as possible. As we all know, tax takes a little hop out of our paychecks every single month, but children are taxed very differently to us. So if we want to be smart, we need to know how to structure these investments to save as much tax as possible, right? So in today's video, I will show you exactly how I would go about investing in my own child's future. I will break it up into 3 parts: the short term, medium term, and long term. And at the end, I will explain what the most tax efficient way would be to invest for each one of these different timelines. So tuck Frikkie into bed, make some hot chocolates, and get your pen and paper ready. Let's go. Alright, so let's start with the short-term savings. This is anything from 1 second to 3 months. This is money that you would, for example, want to use as zakgeld for the snoopy and for your child's monthly allowance. It is important that this money is easily accessible and flexible, and it doesn't really have to earn any interest, as the purpose of this investment is more of a transactional manner. It is a great opportunity to teach your children how money works and how they need to budget. For example, if you only give them a set amount to spend per month or per week, then they need to learn how to budget so that they don't run out of money. If they do, then that's also great, as then you can teach them the valuable lesson of how to earn money from a young age by doing simple things like chores around the house or washing the neighbor's car. So for short-term savings, the easiest would be to put your money in a bank account, or simply just to draw the money and give it as cash. Young children might find it easier to learn how money works when they can physically have it in their hands, but for teenagers, a simple transactional account with your bank will work just fine. A bonus is to open a savings account as well, and then to teach them to keep a portion of their allowance in the savings account until they need it, as just by moving your money out of the transaction account will already help to take away the burning urge to spend it. Alright, next up are the medium-term investments. I'm going to break this one up into 2 parts: the short medium-term investments and the long medium-term investments. Short medium-term investments are investments with a time horizon of anything between 3 months and 1 year. This is money that you may want to use to buy a birthday present, to pay for next year's school fees up front, or to pay for an upcoming school tour. These investments don't necessarily have to be immediately accessible. You want to earn at least a little bit of interest on it, but most importantly, you want to make sure that your capital is guaranteed, meaning that whatever you put into these investments, you want to get out, preferably with some added interest. So for the short medium-term investments, you basically have 3 options. First is to put it in a 3, 6, or 12-month fixed deposit with your bank. This will typically earn you higher interest than just a normal savings account, but your money is not really flexible. So this will only work when you know the exact date of when you will need your money. To see the best updated fixed deposit rates in South Africa, you can check out this cool website, which I will link to down in the description. Your second option would be to put your money in a money market unit trust. These also offer higher interest rates than normal bank savings account. They are easily accessible and very flexible, meaning you can deposit and withdraw money as often as you'd like. But because they are unit trust, you will have to pay a small management fee, and your capital is not 100% guaranteed, so they do carry slightly more risk. Alright, then your third option, and the one that I would personally go for, is the gold savings account with TymeBank. You are allowed to open 10 different savings pockets, and you have up to a 100,000 rand limit that can be spread amongst all 10 different pockets. These accounts offer really good interest rates, ranging anything from 4 to 6% based on a sliding scale. Your capital is guaranteed, and you don't have to pay any fees. You can deposit money as often as you'd like, but if you want to withdraw money, you need to empty the whole pocket. In order to make the best use of these pockets, you need to keep your money invested for longer than 90 days, as that is when you will start earning that juicy 6% interest. So spread your short, medium-term investments equally over the 10 different pockets so that you only have to empty one pocket at a time in order to still earn the high interest rates on the remaining pockets. Okay, lekker. Now we are entering the fun world of investing. Long medium-term investments are investments with a time period of anything between 1 year and 5 years. This is money that you want to save for a car, for your soon-to-be adult baby, tertiary education, or perhaps a big birthday present once they turn 18 years old. For these investments, you definitely want to earn a decent return on your capital. Your money don't have to be as easily accessible, and you can take on a bit more risk because your money is in the market for a longer time. So the investments that fit these criteria the best are called bonds, specifically the RSA Retail Savings Bonds. Now, I already made another video on how exactly these bonds works, so please go and check that out after this video if you don't know how. But just to summarize, with an RSA Retail Savings Bond, you are essentially lending money to the SA government, and in return, they are paying you a really decent interest rate. Now, you used to only get two types of RSA savings bonds, a fixed rate bond and an inflation linked bond. Now, although either of these would work pretty well for long medium term investments, the one that I would specifically look at is the RSA top-up bonds, which is actually a brand new product that was only launched a couple of weeks ago. RSA top-up bonds are only available in 3-year terms, with the interest being reinvested every 3 months. But what gives these bonds a competitive advantage over the other two is that you are allowed to top up your investment whenever you like. So for long medium-term investments for which you know you want to add money to regularly, the RSA top-up bonds would be an excellent option. Your capital is guaranteed, they offer inflation-beating market-related returns, and you have the flexibility to grow your capital as often as you'd like. Alright, now we get to play in the big leagues. Long-term investments are investments with a time horizon of anything above 5 years. This is money that you are saving up for your child's tertiary education, or perhaps to give them a head start in life once they turn 18 in the form of a large amount of capital, to help pay for their wedding, to put a down payment on a house, or perhaps to start their own business. For these investments, you want to earn the highest return possible, and therefore you can afford to take on higher risk. The money does not have to be easily accessible, and very importantly, you don't want to pay any unnecessary fees on these investments, as fees can quickly erode the returns of long-term investments. Now, the most powerful thing that you have with long-term investments is time, as the longer you allow your investments to grow, the more your returns will compound over time. So for long-term investments, you want to target high growth assets such as shares. Now, trying to pick individual shares is tricky and dangerous and does not work for 90% of people. So the easiest and safest thing to do would be to just buy a well-diversified ETF or unit trust that tracks as much of the world's economy as possible. I would personally go for a rand-denominated offshore ETF, as with these investments, your return is based not only on the growth of your investment, but also the value of the rand against the dollar. So if the rand weakens, then in rand terms, your investment returns will increase. And seeing that the rand weakens against the US dollar at an average rate of 2 to 4% every single year, this is just an extra boost to your long-term returns. Now, I know that you are burning to ask whether or not you should use a tax-free savings account to save for your child's long-term future. There's a lot of debate on this topic, but in my opinion, it really depends on what the purpose is behind this investment. If you want to be nice and invest for their retirement, then yes, absolutely use a tax-free savings account. The compounding effect over 65 years will leave them with more than what they will ever need to comfortably retire. But If the purpose of this investment is to use the money for tertiary education, then no, don't use the tax-free savings account allocation. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make with a tax-free savings account is to take money out of it before you reach retirement. The tax savings you get with a tax-free savings account only really becomes realized over a couple of decades. So by taking money out, you are basically rendering all the powerful benefits of a tax-free savings account useless. Same goes for a retirement annuity. With a RA, you can only access your money after the age of 55, except under very special circumstances or by paying hefty fees. So again, if you want to be nice, then yes, you can invest in your child's retirement in their own tax-free savings account or their own retirement annuity. But just keep in mind that once they turn 18, they will become the legal owner of their investments, and thus they will have full control over their own investments. And if they are not properly educated on how to work with money, they may decide to withdraw all of their money from their tax-free savings account to, I don't know, take a pill in Ibiza. And this will drastically hurt them financially, as whatever you take out of your tax-free savings account, you cannot replace again. Also note that once you get closer to the payout date, i.e. when they turn 18, it would be wise to allocate a portion of the long-term investments to safer assets like bonds, as this will just create a cushion effect should the market crash just before you need the money. So, for example, if you want to invest for 18 years for your newborn, then put everything in share investments for the first 15 years and then put all of your contributions for the last 3 years in a top-up RSA retail savings bond. This will allow you not to have to sell off your investments at a loss should the markets go down, and it will just provide a nice buffer that you can use until the markets recover again to sell your shares at a profit. Okay, cool. So now that we know where we need to invest for our children over each different time horizon, the last question is whether or not we should open an account in their name, or if we should just invest in our own personal capacity and then one day withdraw the money and give it back to them. And to answer this question, we simply need to look at how children are taxed differently from us, as taxes will form a major part of what you will end up getting out of your investments at the end of the day. Now, with investments, you basically get three main types of taxes: interest tax, dividend withholding tax, and capital gains tax. Interest tax is the tax that you will need to pay on the returns of either bonds or cash investments. We all get an annual interest tax exemption of 23,800 per year if you are younger than 65, and anything above this threshold will be added to your income and taxed according to your personal marginal tax rate, which can range anything from 18 to 45%. If the companies that you invest in pays out dividends, then these dividends are taxed at a rate of 20%. Dividend withholding tax is subtracted before the dividend payout reaches your pocket, so this happens automatically, meaning it's not something that you will have to pay extra at the end of the tax year. And then when you sell your investments for a profit, the profit will incur what is called a capital gains tax. We all get an annual CGT exclusion of 40,000 Rand, and after this, only 40% of the balance is taxed according to your marginal tax rate. So essentially, capital gains tax will also range anything between 7.2 and 18%. Okay, now children who do not earn a substantial income do not have to register for tax. There are a couple of specific requirements which I will link to down in the description, but for the vast majority of children, they don't need to worry about paying tax, except if the interest income exceeds the 23,800 annual exemption or the 40,000 Rand capital gains tax exemption. But seeing that the excess of both of these investments will be added to their income and taxed according to their marginal tax rate, chances are that they are earning way less money than you do. So it would absolutely make much more sense to open an account in their name and then just to invest money on their behalf. Just note that as a minor, they will need to have the written consent of their parent or their legal guardian to open a bank account or an investment account in their name. Just keep in mind that there's also what is known as a donations tax, which means you as the parent will be taxed at a rate of 20% on every donation that you make to your child. But luckily, everyone has a 100,000 Rand annual donation tax exemption. So unless you are planning on making your child a millionaire before he or she can legally buy their own beer, this shouldn't really be a problem for you. Investing on behalf of your children is a generous act of foresight, as it gives them a massive jumpstart in life by opening up a world of opportunities to them. And seeing that the cost of education rises at a higher rate than normal inflation, it is really important to start saving for their education as soon as possible. Just to give you an idea, school fees for a child starting grade R in 2022 may cost around 875,000 Rand on average to just get through a 13-year public school system. And if you are considering a private school, this can end up costing you closer to 2 million Rand. If you want to calculate approximately how much you need to save every single month for your child, then you can use this handy calculator that I will link to down in the description. But what is even more important than money, in my opinion, is a solid financial education. School will not teach them how to manage their finances. So you, as the parent or legal guardian, are in a very privileged position to teach them the basics of finances and to encourage them to budget, save, and invest from a very young age. Just by teaching them to do these 3 simple things, you will set them up for success later in their life. If you guys found this video helpful, then please clap that like button and let me know down in comments how you guys are saving and investing for your child. Thanks for watching. You must all have a lekker day. Cheers.